Good evening. Welcome to the October 8th, 2018 meeting of the Shawnee City Council. I'd ask that you please silence your electronic devices at this time. I am Mayor Michelle Dissler. I'll be chairing this meeting. I'll do roll call at this time. Councilmember Zimmerman.
Present.
Councilmember Neighbor.
Present.
Councilmember Jenkins.
Present.
Councilmember Kimling.
Present.
Councilmember Meyer.
Present.
Councilmember Sandifer.
Present.
Councilmember Constance.
Present.
Thank you. Please stand. Join us for the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by a moment of silence. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Next, I'll explain our procedures for public input. During the meeting, I'll offer the opportunity for public input. If you'd like to speak to the council at any of those times, please come forward to the microphone. I'll ask you to state your name and address for the record, then you may offer your comment. So that members of the audience can hear your comments, I'd ask that you speak directly into the microphone. By policy, comments are limited to 5 minutes. No person may speak more than twice to any one agenda item. After you're finished, please sign the form on the podium to ensure we have an accurate record of your name and address. In addition, while we won't do a roll call vote on every vote, I will state council members' names who vote in minorities so that our listening audience will have a clear and accurate record of the vote. Next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. Does anyone have an item they'd like to remove from the consent agenda? Seeing none, I'll accept a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Motion has been made, seconded on this item. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Next item on the agenda is mayor's items. I do not have any items tonight. Next item is business from the floor. Is there anyone who has comments on an issue that is not on tonight's agenda? Please step forward and state your name and address for the record.
It's just plain water. Thank you. Ray Ehrlichman, 7510 Garnett Street. I wanted to clarify some comments that I had made last week at the council committee meeting regarding the new community center and some comments made by a member of the council that in effect the council wasn't going to be determining whether or not there was a mill levy. That was going to go to a vote by the people, which is the way it should be. And you're right, Mr. Sandifer, it's going to go for a vote. And if I was a betting man, I'd say the odds are that it's going to get approved. It's just my personal, it's going to get approved. Because when you look at the map of the wards, and you got Ward 3 and that element of Ward 1 that goes across, the element of Ward 4 that goes across, they'd probably approve it. My contention, what I was trying to get across, was that you have a certain element of the city on the east side. And these people are, including myself, it's a different life, different lifestyle than what's on the west side. And I thought it was unfair to have these people have to pay an increase in their mill levy to support a facility on the west side. Because I can't visualize them going all the way across town, especially if you remember the information I showed you last week You've got a new community center going in at Merriam, which is a hop, skip, and a jump for most of those people. And when the August meeting was held explaining what was going on, there were comments that there was positive feedback from all 4 wards. Well, I question that. I don't think anybody in Ward 2 would have been totally positive about it. Ward 3 definitely, and Wards 1 and 4 to an extent. Because when you look at the split of Wards 1 and 4, you have a different lifestyle in one area compared to the other area. It's right there on the map. Look at the little hash marks where the streets are and everything else. Same thing as I pointed out with the income information that was given on the map that was provided in the report, gave the average income for the wards. It's not inaccurate, but it's not accurate because there's a different, they're polarized, different ends. And what I was trying to get across is I feel the only positive way of handling this, and not to burden the people basically in Ward 2, and a good portion of Ward 1, if you look at the map, and a good portion of Ward 4, would be to set up a special taxing district, either using 435 as a split or Lackman Road as a split. Now, about a month or so ago, the council members of Ward 3 and Ward 4 had a coffee and donuts or coffee and cookie thing over there at the New Monticello Library. And I approached one of the council members with the idea of a special taxing district. I won't mention which one it was right now. And the comment that was thrown back at me, which was valid, was, well, what about if the people from the east side came over to use the facility? And when I sat back and looked at it, and I looked at the layout of the city, I questioned how many people from the east side would use it. And I remember there was a quote in the Shawnee Dispatch regarding the fees and everything else, and the quote was by Ms. Constance. And they asked you about, what you thought about, people on the other side of town paying this, and you said, well, maybe we can come up with a scholarship for the fees. And that kind of stuck in my head because that's kind of an educational comment instead of a discount or a break or reimbursement scholarship. Well, I would consider the scholarship being that they wouldn't have to pay the mill levy. Now, if they use the facility, then they would have to pay the fees. And I firmly believe that even if you did a split, you probably still get the voters in the special taxing district to approve it because they're the ones that want it. They are really the ones that want it. If they want it, they're going to get it. So I had other things prepared to say tonight to go into it in more depth and detail, but I want to keep it as brief as possible. I don't want to get shut down for talking more than 35 minutes. That's a joke. You're allowed to laugh at that one.
Well, you're at 5 minutes, so.
Okay. Well, I'll use my second 5 minutes under policy statement 7. I think that we should really, really consider a special taxing district. Now, whether or not it's a good idea or a bad idea, I don't know. But I think it's something that has to be considered. And for it to be considered, I think what we need is one member of the council just to say, hey, staff, find out what it takes. Hey, staff, what do we have to do if we vote to do it? What does it take? And I really would like to see a member of the council come up with that suggestion or that request to the staff to dig into it and find out what the requirements are and how it would work and what the procedures would be. And in particular, I'm looking at 4 members of the council, and I'll say it, wards 1 and 4, because the members of the council from those wards have those split socioeconomic patterns. Look at Ward 1 up there on the map.
We're going to need a motion if you're going to continue on because we're at
I'm sorry?
7 minutes.
Motion
We're
to
at 7
ex-
minutes, so we'll need a motion.
Motion to extend the speaker's time by 5 minutes.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded on this item. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay.
Nay.
Motion passes.
Well, anyway, I would look at the council members from those 2 wards in particular, because I think it would be to your benefit or your advantage not to saddle a certain major portion of your wards with that mill levy increase. So again, I'm going to ask, is there anybody on this council that's willing to say, hey, let's look at it, let's get the information, And I think that's all it would take, to find out what it would be. And thank you very much for the extended time. Really didn't need that much.
Thank you. Is
Thank
there
you.
anyone else who has comments on an issue that's not on tonight's agenda? Mr. Kimling?
I'll just make a comment on what Mr. Ehrlichman said. I would be interested in looking at that if staff could get us some idea on the specifics.
Mr. Zimmerman?
So I appreciate the comments and the observation and the different socioeconomic differences between the East and West. It's a sticky wicket. When you look, as an example, at what we pay for road repairs across the city, and that's tax money that comes in from all around the city. From 2008 to 2018, if these numbers are right, 15 million more dollars were spent on the east side of 435 than on the west side of 435. So the people on the west side of 435 have been paying proportionately more money to repair the roads on the east side of 435, which they may or may not use.
Well, not necessarily. You have to take into consideration that the homes on the west side of 435 are much newer than on
Correct.
east.
That
So
is-
they've been
that is
paying for
correct.
much longer.
That is correct, but nonetheless, the tax money is predominantly going to the east side. It's a sticky wicket. I'm just bringing that up so that everybody has that in their head as they ponder what's been proposed tonight. Taxes do get spread across the entire city.
Right, as we are one Shawnee. Mr. Jenkins?
Yes, we are one Shawnee, and I want to echo the mayor's comments there about that. I've been out talking to a lot of the citizens of Shawnee in the last 3 or 4 months, and it was interesting at one house that the person looked at me and said, you know, why can't we get our stuff done here? I still got, you know, a whole metal culvert here with just a ditch in front of my house. We got no sidewalks, we got no nothing, no street lights or anything. He says, you know, I said, and I mentioned to him, in fact, that the people in Western Shawnee do have higher property values, pay a lot more in taxes per year. He says, yeah, but I've been paying for 65 years. And I thought, bingo, that's a pretty good point, you know, and I think that one kind of set me back a little bit. I had to think about that, and I said, yeah, you got a point. You amortize those costs over years, or some of these guys only been paying these taxes for 2 or 3 years, some of them longer, obviously. But, you know, I think it was a very fair point that was made. I would be interested in seeing the information if that could be generated. I don't want to put something on the staff that would be super time consuming or cost us a lot of money or something. But if we could get those numbers, I'd be curious to see them stacked up against each other. Like if we had to do the mill levy for just a special use district, it would be this, and overall, if it's shared out, it would be this much per house. You know, it'd be this many mills. So it just, you know, I think that'd be useful information. I'd like to see it because, as you know, in Ward 2, we have the very lowest family income, average family income by far. You know, it's actually less than half of Ward 3. And some of those people are really stretching to make ends meet. And, you know, I'm about ready to consider anything that's on the table right now. I'd like to see it all.
Okay, and Councilmember Meyer and then Councilmember Neighbor, but I do need to caution the council, this item is not on tonight's agenda. We should not be discussing it because people were not here to hear this discussion, so we really need to stop discussing this. Councilmember Meyer.
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate that. I just want to speak on, I guess, a little bit on behalf of the residents of Ward 3. I think that I appreciate the comments about a special taxing district, but I also appreciate the role of government. And I understand that there are services that I'm not taking advantage of that I pay for all across the city. Certainly, I have just as many residents who would say, why in the heck are we investing in Neiman? I never go to Neiman. It's not something that's ever going to impact me. I think we can have this conversation kind of all the live long day. And I don't know how we would even go about establishing a special district. So we're going to say, I'm sorry, because you don't make enough money, we've determined that you would not be interested in having a community center in your city, so you're not in our special district. So you don't get to take advantage of this service because we've decided that you don't have enough money for that. I don't know how we make that determination, and I think it's kind of disrespectful, I will say, to those folks who are in the lower income bracket to just assume that they're not interested in this amenity just because they maybe don't have as much discretionary income. Just as I would say, I think that it is insulting to the members of Ward 3, and I would say residents, to assume that we just don't care. We're just going to throw money at whatever it is. I think we're interested in this, and I think we want it to be fiscally responsible. I don't think it has anything to do with, I hate the conversation. I hate the way it's framed that, oh, Ward 3 will pay for anything. This is something that we've wanted. I think that this is a necessity. It's something I've heard about for a decade that I've been in the city, and I hate the way we talk about it, and I think that it is unfair to those residents, just as it would be to anyone who's in Ward 1 or 2 or 4, to say, you don't have enough money to afford this, so we're not going to include you.
Okay, and we need to move forward to the next topics. As I said, this item was not on the agenda, so the council should not be discussing it. The next item is from the Planning Commission meeting of September 17th, 2018. Item number 1 is to consider ordinance number 3238, Z041809, rezoning from AG Agricultural to PSF Planned Single Family. Ordinance number 3239, Z051809, rezoning from agricultural to residential estates to professional office for Bristol Highlands located at 7900 to 8000 blocks of Monticello Road. On September 17, 2018, the Planning Commission recommended 9-0. The governing body approve Z041809, Z051809, subject to the conditions listed in the staff report. An ordinance is required for the zoning request. There are 2 recommended actions. The first is to consider passing ordinance number 3238, Z041809, rezoning from agricultural to planned single family. Is there any discussion from the council? Anyone from the audience like to speak to this item? I'll accept a motion.
Motion to
approve.
Motion has been made, seconded on this item. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Second recommended action is to consider passing ordinance number 3239, Z051809, rezoning from agricultural to residential estates to professional office. Any discussion from the council? Anyone from the audience like to speak to this item? I'll accept a motion.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion has been made, seconded on this item. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes. The next item is from Council Committee meeting of October 2nd, 2018, chaired by Councilmember Zimmerman.
Yes, item number 1 is to consider schedule for filling the Ward 3 vacancy. And Mayor, there are 2 issues that we need to consider tonight. The first is that the council committee voted 6-0 to consider advertising the Ward 3 vacancy beginning October 10th, with consideration of applicants at a special call of the council prior to the Tuesday, November 13th, 2018 regular city council meeting. That's following the procedures set out in PS 71, city council vacancy appointment process. The committee also voted 5-1 to consider adopting resolution number 1844, calling for a special election on November 5th, 2019, to fill the remainder of the Ward 3 term.
Thank you, Councilmember Zimmerman. So there are 2 recommended actions, and before I ask for any discussion from the council, I did have one suggestion in regards to this. So I, with the help of staff, a few years ago, came up with questions that we ask applicants that are appointed to any of our other boards, and I believe Councilmember Constance and Councilmember Jenkins, I think, have used those questions on your recent appointments. I think we should use those, and then any additional questions the council would like to provide beforehand, and then that becomes part of the required forms for submission, because depending on how many applicants we have, each one only gets a few minutes in front of us, and in order to really get to understand a person, and I think it reveals a lot about them. So, and of course, then once they would be here, you could use that opportunity for follow-up questions of any of the answers they provided or any other questions that you have. I mean, this isn't limiting you or stopping you. I just think that it would really help the council to have a more complete picture since we have such limited time. I know some council members choose to meet with applicants, some don't have time, and I think this gives the opportunity for everybody to have more information. And I would suggest those appointment questions that we already have, and then anything, when would you need those by? For any other questions that they would want to add.
Probably in the next week or so we can get those posted and get them out there.
So if, well, yeah, we have the regular appointment questions we do to the And I know like one common question that's asked a lot is, that all my years here is that if you're interested in the position, why have you never run before? Things like that. So any of those, if you could submit those to Nolan, and then we'll send those to all the candidates to be, to have them send back. So then you guys have the opportunity to look over all of those. And then I think it helps be more efficient with the questions you ask when they have their few minutes in front of us.
Right.
So that's my suggestion.
I'm in favor of that.
Do we need a motion, or do we just tell you that that's what we want to do?
Tell us, it's fine. Just send it
Okay.
over.
Okay. So then, is there any discussion from the council on the first recommended action, that advertising the Ward 3 vacancy beginning October 10th with consideration of applicants at a special call for the council prior to the Tuesday, November 3rd, 2018 regular city council meeting, following procedures set out in PS 71 city council vacancy appointment process? Ms. Meyer.
Looks like this is a part of the first recommendation. I don't know if this would be the appropriate time to consider. We have heard from an interested party about perhaps delaying the conversation about having the actual decision, or perhaps making a remote option available so that candidate who is interested in applying can in fact go ahead through the interview, the live interview process, as it were. So just wanted to make sure we had that conversation as well.
Okay. Are there any other comments from the council regarding that? Any thoughts? Mr. Jenkins?
My reaction to doing a remote or whatever is negative. I'm not really too interested in that. If we make it a different date, that's fine, but I'm not interested in doing a remote interview.
Okay. Any other? Mr. Zimmerman?
I'm actually a little bit flip-flop with Eric on that. I'm afraid if we get into moving it back on a date, we kind of open ourselves up to trying to accommodate everybody, and that could become a bit of a challenge. I'd actually be more in favor of a call-in.
Okay.
I'm not really in favor of either one, so.
Yeah.
I think we set our date, if you can make it, great,
Ms. Constance?
I'm in favor of leaving the date the same and not having the remote in, partly because anyone can still file to run for the seat, either the 2-year or the 4-year seat, and so we still have that opportunity. It's just about filling the gap. So I really feel like anyone's still able to be on the council. It's just a matter of running instead of also having the appointment.
Okay. Mr. Sandifer?
I'm in agreement of that. I don't believe we need to have a call-in. We did that for emergencies for council members. I don't believe that's something, I think we don't need to open that up to the public. That could really create some problems down the road, I believe.
Mr. Kimling?
It may not be every day, but I agree with Councilmember Sandifer and Constance on this one.
Mr. Neighbor, did you have any thoughts?
I agree with.
Okay, Councilmember Meyer?
Now I feel like I'm playing the role of Councilmember Kemling, so I'm going to be the lone. I would just, the remote option seems like a good one to me. I just want to make sure that we have as wide a pool of applicants as possible. It's my ward mate, so perhaps I'm partial. But, as we have in the last couple of months now moved to recognize that the council is a position in which you have another job oftentimes and you have other commitments, and we want to be kind of a council that recognizes that and appreciates the diversity of what that brings. I don't think that having a remote option for a candidate would necessarily be a bad thing, but in my mind, it's more reflective of the direction that we're trying to move to be more accommodating to folks who have full-time jobs, because I think that they bring a perspective to the council that is a good one. So I'll be the lone voice.
So do you want to make a motion, or?
Well, sure. I would make a motion that we keep the November 13th date, but allow for a remote call-in of an applicant participation, however you want to word that, Ellis.
Is there a second for that?
I will actually second that.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Should we do a roll call vote? Mr. Zimmerman?
Yay.
Mr. Neighbor?
No.
Mr. Jenkins?
Nay.
Mr. Kimling?
Nay.
Ms. Meyer?
Yes.
Mr. Sandifer?
No?
Ms. Constance?
Nay.
Okay, motion fails. Is there any further discussion of anything about that, or we do a motion
No, we still
on
have to-
the
We still have to approve that.
Right, the consideration of a special call. Oh, sorry. Anyone from the public that would like to speak on this item? Sorry, I lost track of where I was at.
Thanks for talking about me. Good evening. I debated whether or not to even get up, given the comments, and I can appreciate them from every one of you. My name is Kurt Knappen. My address is 22119 Clear Creek Parkway, out in Ward 3. So I prepared comments. I just thought I'd go ahead and share them with you, and then, maybe you can reconsider. I was hoping, obviously, to say something before you took the vote. The reason I'm addressing the council here tonight is not to campaign, obviously, for the Ward 3 position. That would come later. I am here regarding the timeline, and per my email to you, and I try to be real open and send it to all of you, and share with you that I do have significant interest for the seat. Unfortunately, November is a crazy travel month for me. In the 20 years that I've had this job, I can't think of 3 times in the same month that I've had to go out of town, fly out of town. That's not to say that I don't have to go out of town from time to time, but I do. But unfortunately, November is especially tough for me. And I absolutely agree with you that, you'll have the chance to run, and I would seriously look at that. But I also think whoever's appointed will have an advantage. And so, this is the best time to come before you and ask for an appointment. Unfortunately, and I'm going to keep my comments brief, I won't be long, but unfortunately, I'll be in Philadelphia for a developmental leadership summit the week of November 6th. That's the day the appointment's supposed to take place. I also have to be out of town for a commercial field leadership meeting where we're going to conduct our 2019 business planning at my company. And then November 26th and 27th, I have to present to my senior vice president the 2009 business plans that we came up with. And so any other time, I would love to be here. I would respectfully ask for the remote option. I understand that it doesn't need to be granted to the public, but I do think that's a move in the right direction if you have people that work around the council. And I would absolutely, I'm sure I can make myself available on November 6th if I could do that. If not, I will respect your opinions, but I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you. And I would love the opportunity to sit down, talk further, and talk about what I would bring to the council. So with that said, thank you.
Thank you.
November 6th, November 13th is the interview date. Right. Okay.
So you're gone November 13th? Because that's the actual interview date.
So the 12th is.
Yes,
Okay.
I'm gone that week. The week of the 6th, the week of the 12th, and then the 26th and 27th. Again, it's really not, honestly, your problem. I get that. And I realize it's a big ask. So this is my issue. I'm telling you that it's something that I'm serious about and I would like to serve. And in the hope to get as many qualified candidates as possible, I guess I would just ask for your reconsideration on that.
And I take fault in that I asked for the vote prior to asking for public input. Is there anyone else from the public that would like to comment on this item? Please come forward and state your name and address for the record.
Hi, my name is Lisa Larson Bennell. I'm in Ward 3, 7816 Shady Bend Court. I too am a candidate for the vacant position, and I was not planning on speaking tonight because I didn't know that this issue was going to come up, but I would like to say that I would like for the council to consider the remote option. There are 2 reasons that I would like this, actually 3. Number 1 is that I would like Kurt to have an opportunity to really apply for the position and have a fair shake. Number 2, I work in healthcare and it's flu season. We should not be forcing anybody to come here if they are infected with influenza. So that could be for him or that could be for any other candidate. And number 3, I would just say, I want the pool of candidates for Ward 3 to be as diverse as possible. I want the best candidate possible to be selected. I believe that I'm the best candidate, but I would like everybody to have a fair shake. So, thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Any other comments from the public? Okay, so Is there any further consideration of the council? Anyone change their mind and want to consider? Mr.
I'll
Zimmerman?
add simply one more thing. What we do right here is likely going to set precedents for the future. And really, that's my only point.
Okay, so it doesn't look like there's any interest. Okay. So then we will vote on advertising the Ward 3 vacancy beginning October 10th with consideration of applicants at a special call of the council prior to the Tuesday, November 13th, 2018 regular city council meeting following procedures set out in PS 71 City Council Vacancy Appointment Process. I'll accept a
Move to
motion.
advertise.
Second.
Motion has been made, seconded on this item. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Second recommended action is to consider adopting resolution number 1844, calling for a special election on November 5th, 2019. Is there any discussion from the council? Anyone from the audience like to speak to this item? I'll accept a motion.
So moved.
Approve.
Second.
Motion has been made, seconded on this item. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes. And I would suggest you still turn in all of your paperwork and everything, just in case your flight gets canceled or something. The next item on the agenda is staff items. Oh,
Packet, it says Tuesday, November 12th, but Tuesday is the 13th. It's right here in our agenda notes. I just was making sure we had it correct.
Yeah, it should be the 13th. Yep.
Okay. That's all. Thank you.
thank you. Next item on the agenda is staff items. Item number 1 is to consider approving final plans for the Community Development Remodel Project number 3468, renovation of 1,875 square feet of the City Hall West basement area, will consolidate employees in community development and provide improved customer service. Final plans are complete and the project is ready to bid. Recommended action is to consider approving final plans and authorizing staff to bid the project. Is there any discussion from the council? Mr. Neighbor?
I support this. I think anything we can do to make it easier for people to consolidate the process and improve the process for us doing business, and the fact that there's funding available for it, I think it'd be very worthwhile for us to go ahead.
Any other comments from the council? Anyone from the audience like to speak to this item? Seeing none, I'll accept a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Motion has been made, seconded on this item. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Next item on the agenda is miscellaneous items. Item number 1 is to ratify the semi-monthly claim for October 8th, 2018 in the amount of $2,524,824.86. Is there any discussion from the council? Anyone from the audience like to speak to this item? I'll accept a motion.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion has been made, seconded on this item. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Miscellaneous council items. Does anyone on the council have an item they would like to discuss? Mr. Kimling and then Mr. Neighbor.
Yeah, this just came up tonight. I'm kind of curious if either we can get an opinion from the city attorney or the city manager. I don't know if it's really a committee meeting discussion, but I know we've talked about citizen input being 2 times to any one item. And just tonight, Mr. Ehrlichman had tried to exercise the option to use his second one without sitting down. So I wouldn't mind a clarification on that second 5-minute speaking, if it needs a break or when, is it just automatic if they wanted another 5? I would be kind of curious just to get some clarification on that.
Well, before, the reason there would have to be the motion for the second 5 minutes and that they would have to go sit back down is if there's a room full of people that want to speak,
Right.
then it allows other people to come up and speak their turn before somebody speaks 10 minutes.
Right.
Unless the council wants to grant the additional 5
Right.
minutes.
So if it's as simple as just sit down, no one else, and stand back up, I'm just kind of curious since I don't remember that coming up before. So, thank you.
Mr. Neighbor?
I just would like to thank Mr. Whitaker and his staff for, there was a public tour of the Public Works Department last week, and I found it very, very interesting. There are a lot of really interesting big pieces of equipment out there, and there's some very dedicated people that operate them and help keeping our city working. It's amazing to look behind the scenes and see what it takes just to keep our city of 67,000 people working in this equipment. And I also applaud the way your staff has taken and repurposed so much of the equipment, using the chassis and putting, new working parts on the back. I believe we talked briefly, it was like $190,000 last year or something like that. And, all of your folks, keep up the good work.
Mr. Jenkins?
Yes, just the last comment. I'd like to just thank the folks that pitched in on the Scarecrow Festival. I thought it went pretty well. It was, we actually got a little break in the rain just in time for the kids to come out there and enjoy it. So thanks for all your work, all your hard work.
Any other council?
Motion
Okay,
to
there's no other
adjourn.
items. I'll accept a motion to adjourn. Mr. Sandifer? Is there a second?
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded to adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes. We are adjourned. Thank you.